Say the Semantics episode 367. It is March 18th, 2026. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Wednesday evening. It has been a little while since I've recorded anything. It's been like a couple weeks plus. Been a bit busy with work and just just living. So I haven't had the chance to record anything, but it's been good. Things have been going well, I would say. Uh yeah, I mean, I don't know what to really start with. I would say it hasn't been like eventful in the way where it's like, oh my God, there's so much going on. It's just been more of the case of I've just been, busy throughout. I've had a, pretty sort of full schedule in that sense, in regards to my work and stuff like that. I haven't had the chance necessarily to go out a ton, although last weekend I did go visit my friend in Connecticut. That was really nice. It was a nice little break from being out, kind of being in the city. So that was really nice. But yeah, other than that, really just been, I haven't been able to like enjoy a ton of things, but I've had some good food here and there. Yeah, other than that, just kind of, taking things day by day. When I have had a little bit of time, I have played a little bit, some things here and there, and which I do want to talk about, because it has been a couple of weeks. I haven't played as much in the last couple of weeks, but just here and there, sometimes on the weekends, a little bit of gaming, some gaming sessions, and some basketball as well. Although, considering the state of the Warriors, it has been, I think, I admit it has been a bit hard for me to be as invested, because it really doesn't feel right now we're kind of stuck, right? We're truly stuck in between this period of Steph being out. I think we're like squarely in the play-in, but I think even with Steph possibly coming back in the postseason, I just don't have a lot of hope with this current configuration of the team, with so many, a lot of players injured as well. Porzingis has had some time to play, but he's just not reliable as someone who can stay on the floor. So I just don't feel that you can really put too much on him and expect him to contribute at this point of his career. You know what I mean? The hope is, like I said, when they did make the trade, is that I think, the hope is going into next year, once everybody, including Jimmy, gets fully healthy and everything, that sort of team might be able to do something. You know what I mean? Again, we'll see. I'm not really, that's kind of the hope that I think I'm riding on, along with a lot of other fans, but I'm really not putting all of my stock into that, because I think, it feels, I've talked about, I mean, I've said this many times, it feels like, last year, 2 years ago, I said, like, oh, this is probably it. Oh, this is probably it. But they've managed to kind of squeeze back into positioning, like last year with following the Jimmy trade. I was like, oh my God, this just gave this team such a huge burst of, energy and everything. And riding into that momentum, there was there's the great series with the Rockets and everything, cut short with Steph's injury, but it just, they've managed to kind of hold on, like just with just by their fingertips, some semblance of a contending team. But I think that this year, just following just the age and everybody's just injuries, like I think this feels more like in line of what I would consider the end of an era. I think people have sort of bemoaned and talked about that and sort of proclaimed that this kind of Steph era of Warriors basketball has come to a close, but I think it truly does feel that way this time. You know what I mean? They've swung for the fences a couple of times. Once it worked out. This time, I'm not exactly sure if it's really going to culminate in anything with Porzingis, but who knows? But it really feels like this feels like it's kind of it. And at least for this season in particular, you know, I don't know what this sort of ragtag team group of players is really going to be able to achieve. But I don't know. It just doesn't really give me a lot of, I don't know. It doesn't give me a lot to really want to watch this team because there's not really a lot that they're playing for necessarily. You know what I mean? They're going to try to get into play-in contention once again. But outside of that, I just don't really see a way out. Even if they somehow get into the first round, it's like they're going to play OKC. I mean, I don't really... OKC with Steph, who's... I don't know how much we could really bet on him being able to, get through. I don't know, is he going to be back by in the next few weeks? I don't know. I have no idea. I feel like there hasn't been any update on his injury, and honestly, I just don't really know if it's even worth it to run him out at this point, right? Might as well save him for next year. So that's kind of where things are with the Warriors. That has kind of, taken away some of my, enjoyment necessarily of watching them play. So I'm trying to find like some other teams that have something going on. And I would say one of the teams that have been interesting and have once again popped back up on my radar are the Atlanta Hawks. So the Hawks currently are on a 10-game winning streak. They're playing Dallas tonight. We'll see if they can continue it. But, I think a lot of people have sort of commented that they've had a pretty soft schedule, during this streak. But honestly, like, that still lends itself to them taking advantage of that and putting themselves back into the playoff picture, considering that they kind of fell out of it earlier on in this season, right? And I think that's really impressive. I don't know if, I don't know what exactly the team is going to, look like in the playoffs necessarily, but they do have some really interesting pieces. I love Jalen Johnson. He's been a killer for me in fantasy. He's been like my best player in fantasy. Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Dyson Daniels, Onyeka Okongwu. They have now they have Jonathan Kuminga. I don't know what that's going to look like with Kuminga in the mix, but kind of throws an interesting kind of wrinkle into that. Just an interesting team, earlier on in the season, following kind of, the off season when they got Kuminga or when they got Porzingis and Alexander Walker. They had those signs. Everybody was like, oh my God, top 5 in the East and stuff. But unfortunately with, things like Trae Young's injuries and then, Porzingis' injuries, like it just didn't work out, unfortunately. And they decided to move in a different direction. Luckily for them, they do have a pick that will convey to them from the Pelicans. So it's entirely possible that they get like a top 10 pick from them. So that's like huge for their team building. And considering that it feels like this is the direction that they're heading with a bit more youth and stuff. I think that's really exciting, and I think that this will be a really interesting team moving forward, having someone like Jalen Johnson kind of in the lead there. So that's really exciting for them, and they're clicking at the right time. They're moving up in the standings, little by little, and yeah, I think they're going to be kind of a very interesting team to keep an eye out on going into the postseason, right? Um, it's if it really is, it's kind of wild. We're actually getting very close to, you know, the end of the regular season, little by little, about, maybe less than 20 games remaining or so, so a few weeks out. But I think that, I think once we get to that point, albeit I know that, just the Warriors situation has kind of thrown me out of it a little bit, I'll still be excited to see you know, what the playoffs are going to look like. And depending on the matchups, I mean, we had an all-timer last season, heavily led by the Indiana Pacers. Not every, not every playoffs are going to be as exciting, I would say, as last year. Last year was kind of the exception, but you're going to have some interesting series regardless, depending on the matchups and stuff like that. So I'm excited to see how that goes. I'm just excited to, it'll be good to have some high leverage basketball back. So we're getting close to that, and I'm really looking forward to it. March Madness is right now, I think. I haven't really paid that much attention to it, but maybe if I could get the chance, or if I'm interested, I might. We will see. Let's talk about some games. So again, I've been sort of in and out of games here and there. Haven't really played, a ton, obviously, just with timing and stuff. But, maybe I'll play like half an hour or like an hour, every couple of nights or so. So what has taken, I would say, most of my time when, I'm kind of relaxing and stuff, is Slay the Spire 2 in early access, although it feels like it's the full game. Um, I have been waiting for a long time for this game. I've talked about how I love the first game, and I played that to absolute death. And I think it's going to be kind of the same thing with this one. Some quality of life updates, but the main core gameplay is intact. I would say the only change, I mean, there's a number of changes. There's some additional unlockables, two new characters that you can play as, which I think is fun. And even and the older players have some different capabilities as well. It's also a harder game too in comparison to the first one. So I think that if you are, if this is your first time going into the series, I think it would be best to just start with the first one. More of like an artistic update on this for this game as well. But I mean, I've really been enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun. Kind of getting back into that game. The gameplay in particular just is so. It's not like unique in that sense, but it does it so well. Just the loop, just the different mechanics that go into it. How different characters play, like there's just different gameplay styles. Like it's so well done, and I really have enjoyed my time with it. I don't really know what else to add necessarily. Like, it is just an extension of the first game, and that's honestly, I don't really need that much more. Really, I think this is just it's great before, it's great just like a little bit more polish, some additional new gameplay mechanics here and there. It's great, why mess up that formula? Just add on to it a little bit. So Slay the Spire 2 has been great. I've been playing a little bit of Hollow Knight Silksong. I I don't know if I talked about this, but because I don't remember if I bought this game before or after the last time I recorded. Also harder than the original game, which is interesting, right? I it just playing this game reminds me of the satisfaction that you get when you get through certain areas and get through certain bosses and stuff like that, but also just the frustration that comes through that process. You know what I mean? It's kind of this like love-hate relationship that I have in a way, because when you just when you can't get past something, it is very frustrating, and there's, it's just certain things, like that just it's tough. It's like a tough pill to swallow when you can't beat something on, on multiple tries, but eventually you just have to kind of get down the patterns and stuff like that. It's pretty punishing. I would say you lose your health twice without being able to retrieve your inventory, and you kind of lose it all. It's really tough. It just happened to me when I just had my little short gaming session, but it's really tough. It is not easy at all. And I think this is kind of the reason why I sort of have hopped in and out of this. When I initially bought this game, like a few weeks back or however long back, I put in, a good chunk of time. I would say I spent like a weekend playing this game, or, one day, like a Saturday playing this game. And then I put it down because I kind of hit a bit of a wall, and I got back into it today a little bit, and it's you just have to be like patient. It's definitely not a great game where you can just kind of relax. It is not a game by which you can like relax, honestly. And I have to kind of take into consideration that if I am, you know, if I am busy and I have a lot of things going on, this is not like the best game to de de-stress and sort of decompress or whatever, you know what I mean? Like I have to kind of be like, I want to play it, but also I have to be in the right headspace to do it. So that's why I haven't, like, my sort of gameplay with it is a bit sporadic here and there. So yeah, it's there's, just kind of the memory based patterns of remembering the attacks from the boss, and also trying to get back to, certain points in a level. It's there's a lot that goes into it, and I think that it's not for the faint of heart. I absolutely understand, some people's qualms about the difficulty with this game. It's tough. It is definitely punishing, but I think once you get into a certain stride, it is very rewarding. And being able to discover certain things and uncover secrets and stuff like that is very satisfying. Getting new abilities so that you can access new areas, similar to the original Hollow Knight, that's a really great feeling. That's one of my favorite kind of moments in both respective games. So yeah, I just think it's interesting in both cases for Hollow Knight, Silksong, and Slay the Spire 2, how these games were approached in terms of like the difficulty. Because I think a lot of times it feels like, especially when a game is popular, there is almost this sense of wanting to appeal to a larger audience now that you've garnered it from the original release. But the fact that they didn't compromise on that vision, they didn't try to like compromise and try to popularize any of the gameplay styles by adding quality, I don't know, making things more easy in that sense, I think kind of lends itself to, just the confidence in the developers and being like, hey, we know these games are good, right? Obviously, having kind of that install base from the original game definitely helps, but I think just the confidence in their ability to create something that is, unshaken in their vision in terms of what they kind of set out to do, and creating something that maybe it doesn't appeal to everybody, right? It definitely doesn't. Whether it's in the case of Slay the Spire or Silksong, but they still have been incredible successes, right? Because I think the people that do stick with it are they're already in the game. And I think that people who maybe were not familiar with the Hollow Knight series first, maybe go into this game, even if it is like incredibly challenging and difficult. I think maybe there's like, it's almost like a refreshing thing, you know what I mean? It's almost like this refreshing experience for some people who might have never played a game like this before, right? Just like the organic hype that came from for these games, I think lend itself to the creators willing to, not willing, but just staying focused and unwilling to kind of compromise on that vision, right? And I think that's pretty admirable, right? I don't know if I necessarily love this game yet. I mean, again, I said I do have like a love-hate relationship, but I love aspects of the game. I think it's, I think I still feel I have a bit more of a connection with the original Hollow Knight game, but again, I haven't played Silksong enough to make that determination whether I like one game or the other, right? I think just the original, just the novelty of Hollow Knight absolutely stuck with me. And also, I was never the biggest like platformer to begin with, so that game kind of, sort of brought me into that world a little bit more. With Silksong, I think I have to sort of wait to see how I feel about it. But so far, I mean, I've enjoyed a lot of it. It's just hard. It's just hard as nails. And that's kind of what that's kind of the thing. And I think that, again, it just has to come with going into a game with a certain certain mindset, certain headspace. It's just not something I feel I can really play every day. I have to really do it on occasion. I can't just be like, especially if I had like a hard day or something, or maybe a long day. It's just not the best game to relax to. So, anyways, yeah, Silksong, it's been great, but I just think it's interesting in which the ways these two indie game sequels have kind of approached, most notably in terms of how they handled the difficulty of games, right? Another game, another sequel that I played a little earlier, and I think I did talk about this before I left for New York, was Monster Train 2. Another card game, roguelike, roguelike deck builder. That was fun. It's just that, again, another extension of the original game, some difficulty there as well, but just adding on to what already works and just building off of it. So yeah, within a span of like a month plus, I've played three different sequels, while not like super extensively in all of them. Dabbled enough to kind of gauge my initial sort of thoughts. But I just think it's interesting that all of the games that I've been playing have been sequels that have sort of, that are like iterative of the original game, but are improvements in some way, shape, or form. Improvements slash adding additional gameplay features, but not like complete changes from the formula, right? So that's kind of just wanted to I wanted to make that observation. Anyways, just wanted to hop on a little bit and talk about, just catch up a little bit on what's been going on. Again, not like a lot, but mostly just, just some things here and there. Some games I've been playing, some thoughts on what's been going on with, the NBA as usual. I don't know, I do want to try to find the time to record once a week again. But it's just been sort of hard to like figure out my schedule and stuff. So we'll work that out. It might take a little bit of time. But for now, the cadence by which I upload these might be a little slower because of just my general kind of situation. But we'll figure it out. I do want to get back more into kind of podcasting and recording and stuff because it has been a little while. But yeah, just wanted to do a quick one here. That's going to do it for this week's episode. Thanks for listening as always. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.